My goals for me when I was your age, if I was talking to myself and looking into the window back at Wendy, I said, watch your budget. Don't drive so fast. Take care of the things that can't be fixed in an hour or two. Your health, your marriage, your spiritual walk, your friendships. You can't reverse health issues of years of neglect or a marriage that was put on the back burner, or your walk with the Lord. While he is always merciful, you miss out on walking with his wisdom, and you can't make old friends.
Welcome to Scared Confident. I'm your host, Tiffany Souter. Okay, so Mother's Day is coming up, and so I thought what a great time to have my mom on the pod. We take walks a lot, and Mom is always good at like texting us little words of encouragement. So I thought this would be a great time for you to share some of the things that you tell us as kids and grandkids and share that with my listeners. But also, you're at like a life stage ahead, obviously, or two of me. And I know some people listening are not only in my stage of life where I've got a bunch of little kids that I'm running to everywhere from Sunday. And so you kind of sharing what does a life of and look like in your season of life, because it's not just when you're having kids. Had kids. I'm out of that, everybody. Let's be clear. And this is our second take because Mom was clearing her throat a lot. So I said, we can't have that.
She's a daughter.
We're just going to be real about it. We're going to keep it loose and keep it real, Mama Bear. And I was joking earlier, Business Wendy came today.
That's right.
She has a blazer on. We have Cooking Wendy, we have Nana Wendy, and we have Business Wendy. So Business Wendy in the podcast studio.
Nature Wendy.
Yeah, Nature Wendy. That's right. She loves butterflies. Okay, so I hear too often that people are going to wait until the next stage of life to like add an and, start a project, take a risk, do a thing. And I have seen, and I feel like I have like a front row seat to you and Dad's life. You're in your 60s, I'm in my 40s, that like there is no perfect stage. There's not this moment where life is just clear of any obstacles. You have all the time in the world that you want, at least if you're going to do this stage in the way that you and Dad have chosen. Maybe do a quick backdrop of like just what the lay of the land is in your world so that people who don't know our family know that.
Yes.
She's like stressed because she cleared her throat.
Yeah.
We're just going to bring him in on the joke.
Yeah, just do that.
She's like, I think I have some drainage.
No, I didn't say that. I think I'm getting cold.
Yeah. So we're bringing you in on the joke. If Mom has to clear her throat, that's the problem.
Yes.
We love you. And we're laughing with you, not at you.
Always.
Okay, lay the land.
Okay. So we have 4 kids. You're all married. And your 2 brothers are in Indianapolis, which is about an hour and 15 minutes from me and John. And then I have a daughter and her husband and 5 kids that live in Arizona. My mom is 93, the queen of the bunch, and she is at a rest home in Francisville. So she's like half hour north of me. I have you and 3 kids, an hour and 15 minutes south of me, and then just my own little Southwest private car that goes out west.
Yeah, her the airplane that she takes to go see the sister.
That's right.
So there's 16 grandkids, ages 15 to 18 months.
18 months, yes.
A lot of kids, a lot of people.
Yes.
And you are the sandwich, and some cousins that we claim as brothers, and sisters. This like sandwich generation that they talk about is what you're living in right now, where your kids need you, your grandkids want you incessantly, perpetually,
Love it.
Always. There is no ending train. And then your mom is still living, and you're the only daughter and not the primary caretaker, but primary decision maker in what's going on there. Yeah, big responsibility. How have you thought about what you do now, what you say yes to, what ands you add into your life? And maybe there's seasons where things that made sense, you have to take those out of your life because they don't make sense as the number of people grow. And I always joke, the number of gifts that you have to buy in a year is like mind-boggling. Think about it. 16 grandkids, 16 birthdays, 16 Easter baskets, 16 like stockings, plus us kids, don't leave us out, and the in-laws, and our anniversaries. Yeah. Like it is insanity. That itself would be a full-time job. We don't expect it, but you're always good about being very thoughtful. So wild to me. Okay, so how do you think about that? And in this season, as you're like serving a lot of different people, what does and look like at this stage of your life?
Yeah, one of the sweetnesses of being in your 60s. So we had our kids young. By 29, we'd had 4 children. So at 65, I feel like we're kind of on the young age of having that many grandkids and being able to like travel with you all and do like really fun things with just being active has been really a blessing. We really enjoy that. So one of the things I feel like to look forward to in your 60s is we have evenings where we don't have to put kids to bed. And I still jump in the car and there's no diaper bags. There's no like all the things that you have to do. You have to pack like all your bags for your little ones to go to practice. And like there's a lot of activities that you do now that it's just constant every day and every night and every morning. So we have the flexibility at my age to like have a little bit more of that space, which is like really, really precious. And we value that. John and I really value that and use that time to like really take some time to talk, or just we value our rest and taking care of ourselves and staying active. I think, Tiffany, that I laughingly told you the other day when you said you were busy, I said you're just training for your 60s. There is a busyness to the 60s that's really ongoing from what we started, I think, when you were little. So priority has always been that we have a strong family and family values, and our church is really important. So when you love your child, you love what your child brings in. So we love your JR, we love each one of our kids' spouses, and we love your kids. So it's just an extension of that. And what your values are like, what made the fabric of what you call a rich life. In our season and stage, one of the things I feel like we have to guard against is still having things that fill us and that we're just not always pouring out. So I'm very intentional about like not just answering things.
Like what's an example?
So it can be just fulfilling requests, whether it's small group requests or somebody texts you for this or emails, or just like a constant like answering back, but to continue to grow and to like not just be answering, but allow time when you're sitting. I love to sit in our hearth room and read some new books, or I just got done with reading a book on forgiveness. It just really challenged me, a book on the greatest thing in the world. It was a study on love, and just like doing those things that can really make my mind grow and like my heart grow. And then also learning new things. I'm in a sourdough frenzy right now. Love to bake.
It's true.
And learning that. And also my degree is in nursing, but I've always had like a bent toward creativeness. So learning more about interior design and being willing to like put myself out there to pour into our community with that. When I got the building downtown and converted it into a co-working space, there were times when I looked at it and I was like, what did I do? This is like such a big project, and the roof was falling in and there was no insulation. And like, I had to learn things about HVAC, and like when the windows were bad in the basement, it was flooding, just figuring all that stuff out was way beyond me. And then once you figure it out, once you do it, it sets you up. I was more confident for other things. So when I did bricks, it's downtown right in the middle of Remington. And John and I have really poured a lot into our community. We love it. We just have this feeling that wherever you are, if you can just enhance that somehow. So from that, I was able to partner with the town and help in some other design work for the town hall, working with the designers there. And just like one thing leads to another thing just because you're not afraid. And then the other thing I have to work on myself is to recognize your talent. Like, I feel like sometimes I diminish what I do. Like, oh, that's not a big deal. But like when you recognize it and you know, okay, this is something that God gave me this talent to do, then it gives you the courage to step forward and be like helpful for other people. And then that's filling too.
I feel like that's been a journey for you.
It has.
Like
huge.
As an adult even.
Yeah.
Like since we've been gone.
Yeah.
Yeah. Can you want to speak to that at all?
Yeah, I think I don't know if it's just my journey or if it's my age group.
I think it's your age group, because I think my generation, even like my daughters more so, this idea of women being very empowered is very much a meta narrative right now. And I think my generation coming out of college, that was starting to become a thing of like, hey, look, you can go do things on your own and the world's not going to eat you. But I think your generation, it was not that case necessarily. And so this idea of claiming and owning and seeing yourself in a light that is like, no, I have gifts to offer and I want to do that freely, me sitting behind a door doesn't serve anybody, you or the rest of the world.
I have actually thought about that because my mom, she went to Indiana Business School. She was very bright. She was like very good at like helping my dad with, he was a minister and very successful at leading people. I would say his love was people and bringing people to Christ and just like loving people. He was really good at that. And doing that, he was also a big farmer. So mom was really a great partner for him with like helping with the finances and a lot of that part. So I feel like I had a good role model, and mom always encouraged me to go to nurses training when I wanted to. And just like there was a lot of support there that I have. So when I look back, I think that there was always a worry that a woman would get hurt. I have 4 brothers, 2 older and 2 younger, no sisters. And I felt like my parents were, I would say, appropriately protective of me. I think they knew what they knew and they did the best that they could for me. And I think in that protection, maybe in that generation, they saw so much hurt. They went through the Depression. They had siblings that went off to the war. Mom had an older sibling that came back not the same. You know, they saw a lot of things that were different than what we've seen. So they reacted in the response to
risk
like
differently.
Yes, they did. And then after the Depression, just like the way that they made money and like the security of making money, I think that the way that they saw that was different. And so then obviously they raised us a little bit different. So they knew what they knew. I always loved to do things. We farmed when we got married, and I was as active as I could be on the farm, worked as a nurse up until you were born, and then helped with dispatching on the farm because things were so different. Living in a rural area, I had that like desire to do things. So I had to like manage it in what was available to me. So we didn't have daycare. So I did things that I could do out with being at home. So I had made barrettes. I put them into like little boutiques. I sewed all the time. So I would make wedding dresses or bridesmaid dresses. Stop that when there was like 8 bridesmaids. But just like all the things that you do at that age and that season for what's available to you. And then daycare wasn't really a thing that was like any rural so much available. So we just did what you did. And I think that maybe not having the camaraderie of like what you would have now with like working women, where you can like still have that same goals as I have, or they're the same. I love my family. I want my family, my kids to grow up good people. I want them to learn discipline, all those good things, to learn to love Jesus. I mean, all of that stuff can be the same. It just looks different at different generations. Your question, like I was constantly diminishing, and I think this maybe is a little personality too, what my gifts were. And so then I was afraid to use them. So I think that doing bricks and like just doing something that was really hard that actually could have lost a lot of money. And it was a risk, and being willing to be like, oh, I'm going to do it. And just, I'm going to work really hard at it. And then working through the obstacles literally bit by bit. And then I think John was really good for me too, because I would lean on him a lot. And I think that I learned to do that even as a kid. I could always lean on my brothers, or I could lean on my dad, or we were married young, so I'd lean on John. It was really good for him to say, no, figure it out. Just go figure it out. So now I tell myself that. And I think that's the key. You know, figure it out. You got a brain. And if you make a mistake, it's not the end of the world. I think it's fine.
I see a difference in you in like the last 3 to 5 years in that.
Yeah.
Like you being like, no, I'm a whole entity. I can, my brain, I can call people. I can do the thing. Because I feel like that independence in me was more natural.
Yes. That's why I said nature. I think part of it's
some
nature.
of it's nature. I think some of it's environmental too.
Yeah.
I think it's both. I do think I grew up, Dad was more like, good luck with yourself, you know, more than your dad was to you.
Yes.
Like my dad is very like, you'll be fine.
Yeah.
You won't get eaten. Yeah. There are no alligators.
There's no alligators.
Even there might be an alligator.
There might be.
They'll say there are no
behind
alligators.
his back, I'd be like, yes, there was on turn 2.
Yeah, totally. There might be an alligator. So I think that's interesting because I do think I think there's different challenges in different generations among a myriad of different topics. But I think this part of people who are in your stage of life feeling like I can explore my talents. I don't have to go into retirement, whatever that means to you. I think that's actually something maybe we'll spend a second talking about because you and Dad, I think, have decided to do retirement in a different way. I don't know if you would say we don't really say we are retired. It's not, doesn't look very retired. I don't know what that word means to you guys in your stage, but you guys don't like go somewhere for 3 months and kind of exit stage left, you very much stay engaged in your communities and your families. I don't know, maybe share a few minutes on how you guys think about that, and then we'll go into the pieces of advice for my stage of life.
Yeah, I would say staying busy and staying active and growing, like you said, in the last, maybe you've noticed it in the last couple of years, has been really good for our marriage. And it's been good, I think, in my relationships with my adult kids too, because like you're more relatable. You also have things to do. Like I'm so interested and always want to be there for you kids. But also I think it's been good for me to like continue to grow and for John to continue
and
to
not
grow.
just watch our kids. Like you'll say that, like you love being
Yes.
with your grandkids.
I say
And
yes whenever I can.
yeah, you can. But you're like, I don't want to just be in your life by watching your kids.
Yeah.
I also want to like be in your life.
Yes.
And I think that's actually like a good thing to say. I don't know that everybody finds the words for that. Like that I don't want to just be the drop off.
Yeah, because I love my kids. Yeah. And that's like important to, like I always call it skin time. Like with John, I'll say, hey, I feel like we haven't seen the kids. We need to go have some skin time because unless you're holding your kids or if I see you and I hug you, and there's always something that we laugh about, it's like that relationship that you have that is really important, that really maintains that family closeness. It's really important. As far as retirement, we actually talk about it a lot. I feel like we have a hybrid that's been really good for us. So Christmas is really big around our house, and so we don't do anything like in December. And then in January and February is usually our time. And so we were able to take 4 really great trips, 2 out of the country, this in a matter of like 6 weeks. And I think that that's like kind of our form of like retirement where we can go see a cousin in Costa Rica for a week and we can explore there. We were able to go with you and JR to Utah for a week. We were out with Brandy and Seth for a week in Arizona, and my brother moved to Florida. Like being able to like take that time and set it aside. And then if there are things that we need to do on our computer, we can. It's like so great with the way the world is these days. But to us, that feels really exciting. And then we also really love to pour back into our businesses and even start new businesses. So if anybody needs umbrellas, call me. But I think that for us, for John and I, we do love to travel, but we haven't seen right now where just being away for 3 months feels good to us. We like being around you kids. We like being around the grandkids. Oh my goodness, they change so much in just 6 months in the things that they're doing, the things that they're accomplishing. It's like so fun to be engaged with them. So that's what our entire retirement is right now.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, so I sent you this question ahead of time, but what this idea of kind of like calling back to your 43-year-old self, or one of the things that I think I had to work through is this like head trash of I started having kids when you were done. So you were done with all 4 at 29 and I had my first at 29. And so this idea of like, holy crap, I'm kind of already behind. I'm going to be so much older when I'm at your season of life. Does it have to look really different? And I'm like, are my grandkids going to be pushing me around in a wheelchair when they're 8 years old? Like it's crazy because there's like a lot of years, almost 20 years between when you had me and when I had Quincy, which is crazy. You start to almost like change the generations and how they look. We don't need to talk about that really, except that was a thing for me, just being like, that was one of the first imprint on my life that looks so different than yours was me working full time outside of the home. And then like the second part was like, well, if I'm going to be a mom, and mom was a mom, but then I was like, holy crap, I'm doing it at such a different age. Is like, how does that? I don't know. I think there's this thing with, I don't know. I think you're either spend your adult life trying to redeem a crappy childhood or imagining that you're going to just repeat the one you liked. You know what I mean? And I was like, it was like a pretty good thing. So I like my life will probably look like this, but it starts to look differently. So anyways, okay. So calling back to your younger self, do you want to say any words on that, or do we?
I think a lot of that is head trash. I think that.
Oh, totally.
Yeah,
you would never
because I
said
think
anything.
I'm not saying that you thought I imposed that on you, because I think that there's a lot of women that are having children older than we used to, because we grew up in the farm, and I think it was just, not that there's anything with farming, but I just think the culture was that you went to college and got married in college, or sometimes before college or out of college. It was like so normal. And now We lead a group of young professionals in their 30s and bumping up to 40, sometimes 40s, and they're excited about what they're doing. They're like growing in their careers. So they're having a lot of questions answered that maybe I didn't get answered until like 5 years ago or 4 years ago. So I think there's never a wrong time to have a baby, and that God brings that gift into your life, and you're the perfect mom for that child, and that's such a beautiful thing. So I don't know if that answers that, but I just feel one other thing I want to say is I feel like people take better care of themselves health-wise now than they used to. I think that can set you ahead 20 years. It's amazing. The fitness levels you do is a great job. I feel like all you kids do such a nice job of just like being intentional about your health.
Okay. So yeah, what advice would you give your younger self?
Yeah. So I actually wrote 3 pieces to tell like your generation. And then I was like, I had a 4th because I was like what I would tell myself.
Yeah.
Back then. The first one's, it's not the things you get your kids at Christmas, but the time you spend together that they will remember. Take time to go on vacation and spend that time together. Save the money you would spend on gifts and put it in a time together account. And that's something that we did when you were young, and we learned it from somebody that was a kind of a funny story, but that was a very key thing that we remembered and did. Your value is not tied to your accomplishments. A day's work at your stage can feel like Groundhog Day. Develop an attitude of gratitude for the blessings that keep you busy. When I think back on that, I remember thinking, it's pretty much the same. I mean, even... And, my personality is creative, so it felt like
it's pretty much the same.
And then just being grateful for those loads of laundry. Keep your life goals front and center. Anything that you do should be adding to your goals. Be intentional about setting them. Goals are not something you get to order from Amazon Prime and send back if they don't work out. You get to pick your goals, but you don't get to pick the consequences. So be thoughtful and intentional. What you tend to grows. And I think that is something... Goals sometimes are easy to like let slide because we give ourselves excuses, and excuses don't work if you're not on your goal, the excuse doesn't change the consequence. It just is an excuse. So I think for me, that played out with, I just needed to say no sometimes. And sometimes I needed to say yes because I could do it. So I think you just have to know like where it lies.
Do you feel like having goals has always been a natural muscle for you, or is that something you've learned to do?
I think I've always had a natural muscle for goals. I think that I have gotten broader with like specific goals. So I think I've always wanted to be intentional. Like when I went to nurses training, I was like bent on like being a charge nurse at a pediatric unit. Well, those changed a little bit when I got married, but I think that because your stages of life changes, sometimes your goals will change because you have more things that you're in charge of, because I didn't have a family. So then my goals changed a little bit regarding my family. My goals for me when I was your age, if I was talking to myself and looking into the window back at Wendy, I said, watch your budget. Don't drive so fast. Take care of the things that can't be fixed in an hour or 2. Your health, your marriage, your spiritual walk, your friendships. You can't reverse health issues of years of neglect or a marriage that was put on the back burner, or your walk with the Lord. While he is always merciful, you miss out on walking with his wisdom, and you can't make old friends. It came out really fast in my mind because I was like, I think those were things that I did. I did drive too fast. And
so fast.
Sometimes not so fast, but I got more tickets at that age.
You got a lot of tickets. That's what, yeah. Not fast.
Go to driving school.
Sometimes mom is like, yeah, not fast, just lots of tickets.
Yeah, just lots of tickets. And watch your budget too. I feel like it's an easy time to not watch your budget because there's so many things that are so cute. And honestly, it's like so freeing. That's when I really started to pay attention to budget, and we did a cash budget, and it was powerful for us. Very freeing. And sometimes I just felt behind and like needed a pedicure. It's like, I need a haircut. It's like all those things, if it can be fixed in an hour or 2, don't worry about it. But just the things that can't be like fixed, I think I always tell you that you can't just change in a little bit.
Because I can turn into a task-oriented psychopath. When I'm like, this house is a mess. Your nose needs to be blown. I do not want to see those shoes one more time in my life. And those are all very temporary things that they make a lot of clutter for my head, and I sometimes need to shift my focus to like let them play, let it be. Yeah, have a friend over, whatever. Like, it doesn't matter.
I don't know if you remember this, but Saturday was always our day to get back to ground zero.
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, so during the week, it's kind of like, otherwise you're just constantly on it. And you kind of like, your relationship can just be like all that, like just shoes,
But we didn't live in like a cluttery space.
No, we didn't.
You let our rooms be crazy.
Yeah,
your rooms, the common areas of the house. I feel like Dad, we weren't allowed to keep stuff on the stairway.
Yeah, he was more the like declutter. I was more the like underneath clean. So it didn't bother me if like the floor was really clean if there was 10 pairs of shoes on it. But yeah. We're a good team that way.
Okay, what's your self-care advice for 60s? What's the biggest thing that you feel like is making a difference? People tell you all the time you look so young. You are actually young.
I think that if you're grumpy, I feel like attitude does make a lot of a difference with that, because you can look at somebody, and I think it's important to exercise and stay active. I used to be nervous about that, about talking about like exercise and diet, because I was worried that people will think that it was just all about like how I thought about how I looked. But the honesty of it is, if you don't take care of yourself, you can't do the things to the best that you can. Like life happens and happens to us all. Life will hand you that it's not your fault. But if you can, it really helps to have like a strong body and strong muscles when you got 16 grandkids. And I'm very intentional about having yearly checkups. And I'm proud of this because I go to a sports nutrition doctor and they did my grip on my hand. I was like, why do you do this? And they're like, it's a mortality thing. Like if you have bad grip, there's a higher chances of heart disease. And like, mine was like twice normal of my age. And I was super excited.
Yeah.
But
that's really
it's like you're lifting heavy things and go play pickleball and like just live life in a fun way. I don't make it drudgery. I just feel like there's just a lot of fun things that I do that help me stay healthy.
What's your minimum, Mom? I was schooling you on this the other day. I was like yelling at you in the car.
She was.
What's your minimum?
3 times a week.
How many weeks in a row have you hit 3 times a week?
Oh, I would say I'm very consistent on 3 times a week.
Because remember, you were like, I got this new thing. And I was like, what are your minimum? She's like, every day. And I was like, no, what's your minimum? She's like, I know. Every day. I was like, so on your worst week, you're going to do every day. Well, no. Yeah. And I was like, okay, what are you going to do in your worst week?
3 weeks. And this is a really, really busy week for me this week. And it's 3 times.
That's good. Like, what's your minimum?
She did.
Every day. No, what's your minimum?
Because my personality is I can always do this because I have 29 hours in a day and I only sleep none.
And I get that from you.
Yes.
A bad sense of time and too long of a list.
That's the other thing. I've learned to laugh at the things that I'm really like bad at and just embrace it. Mm-hmm. I try really hard to overcome some of those things, but some of them just show up.
Yeah, it is what it is. So, all right. Well, Mom, thanks for anything else you want to say?
I love you, my child. This has been really fun.
Thank you so much. Thanks for coming on. Appreciate it very much. Okay, we did it. With no clearing of the throat. Thank you for joining me on another episode of Scared Confident. Until next time, keep telling fear, you will not decide what happens in my life. I will.